It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. Nearly 1 million more people moving to the UK than leaving in just 1 year, as Sir Keir Starmer condemns what he calls an experiment in open borders.
People feel incredibly let down by their politicians. You say you want to bring it down. What does that mean?
Beth, when you say people have been let down, you're absolutely right.
The growth in population was even bigger than had been estimated before. But as the Prime Minister blames his predecessors, it's now his problem to solve. Also on Sky News at 10, the Cabinet Minister, who Sky News discovered pled guilty to an offence in connection with misleading the police, defends her actions tonight.
Okay, guys, you're not getting cold out there.
The MasterChef star stepping away from the stove as he's accused of inappropriate behaviour and comments about sex. Spotlights, sirens and nightly attacks. As Ukraine comes under intense bombardment, we see how the country's military is trying to repel them. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Good evening. Even the unsuccessful candidate to become the Conservatives' next leader called it a day of shame for his party. Robert Jenrick referring to the official data, which confirmed not far off 1 million more people moved to the UK last year than left it. So Keir Starmer said that people had been let down and that the last government had lost control of Britain's borders. Well, the numbers revealed by the Office for National Statistics today are eye-watering. It had previously been thought 740,000 more people came into the UK than left the country in the figures for 2023. Well, that was today upgraded to a record 906,000. That's more than the population of Leeds. The figures for this year to June fell to 728,000, but we're still close to the previous record. In a moment, our economics and data editor Ed Conway will give his assessment of where those migrants have come from. But first, our political editor Beth Rigby has this report.
He may be smiling, but the news serious. Net migration figures shockingly high. A PM perhaps relieved it's not on his watch.
Nearly 1 million people came to Britain in the year ending June 2023. That is 4 times the migration levels compared with 2019. Time and again, the Conservative Party promised they would get the numbers down. Time and again, they failed.
This, for many, a Brexit betrayal. This PM promising to turn the page.
Failure on this scale isn't just bad luck. Policies were reformed deliberately to liberalise immigration. Brexit was used for that purpose, to turn Britain into a one-nation experiment in open borders.
Announcing a new security agreement with Iraq to deter migrants and a promise to drive immigration down. People feel incredibly let down by their politicians. You say you want to bring it down. What does that mean?
Beth, when you say people have been let down, you're absolutely right, because they were promised by the last government that it would get control of our borders, and we had a government that completely lost control of our borders. And these numbers, this 4-time increase, that wasn't just bad luck post-Brexit, that was their policy.
The PM, not the only one at a podium today. Reform's Nigel Farage out too, berating the Tories' record in government while telling the public that Labour are even worse. Keir Starmer says he has a plan to drive down migration and has made that commitment. Are you saying that because actually you need Labour to fail on migration in order to try and improve your chances at the next general election?
The incoming Labour government said there would be fewer cross-channel migrants going into hotels. We learned this morning that number has increased by 6,000 just since Labour came to power. And on the broader question of who can come into the country and settle, they seem to be wholly unconcerned on that issue.
But there is concern, huge concern. In 2023, the UK population grew by almost 1 million people through migration. That's more than 3 times the population of Derby in the East Midlands. And in this refugee centre, volunteers are seeing it.
We have seen great increases, but the last 6 months it's been steady, but at a much higher level than it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Local people are noticing the change too.
Derby has changed so much. Everybody seems to be just ignoring the fact that they're here. Our economy won't last forever. They can't rely on us forever.
The people here voted for Brexit, but instead of taking back control, migration has hit record highs. It isn't Labour's legacy, but it is now their problem to fix. Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Well, an analysis of the figures revealed today shows they dwarf previous arrivals of migrants, like those of people from Poland in the noughties or from Romania in the 2010s. Our economics and data editor, Ed Conway, has taken a closer look at today's numbers.
Is migration going up or down? It may seem like a simple question, but actually it's a slightly complex answer. But you'll get a sense of it by looking at what the ONS said was happening to migration, net migration, so number of people coming in minus number of people going out, this time last year. They said it had gone up a lot, but look, they said it was coming down. Then new figures came in. So 6 months ago, for the same period, they said, oh, it's a slightly different picture. It is coming down, but it went up a bit higher in the first place. This time around, well, imagine the same things happened, but amp it up a lot more because it went up to an even higher peak. And now they say it's coming down. But here's the key thing to look at. If you look at a certain period here, so look at the year to June 2023, a year ago we were told in that period, not only was migration coming down, that it was 672,000 people, net migration into this country. Now we learn in that same period, actually, it was 906,000, so nearly 1 million, a massive change. And what explains that? Well, if we take that figure, so last time around, as I say, migration is immigration minus emigration. So number of people coming in minus those leaving. Last time, number of people coming in, just over 1 million. Number of people going, just over 500,000. Well, the ONS has looked at it again, looked at the new numbers. They think there's more people who have come in over that period, so 140,000 more people coming in. And the number of people leaving the country, that was slightly fewer than they previously thought, and then top that up, and then you end up with that figure, nearly 1 million. It's worth asking the question, though, if we look back through history, what is it that's triggered this? OK, and if you look back, this is just immigration, so just people coming in. It was pretty constant, wasn't it, before COVID? And clearly, when the Brexit rules came in, the post-Brexit changes to immigration, look at that change. A massive shift. We've never seen anything like that. Number of people coming in from the EU, that goes down a lot, as you might expect. But look at the rise in the number of people from outside the EU. And this is the key thing. Countries outside the EU, people from there coming into the UK at rates that we really have never seen before. When I say that, look, that's the number of people coming from India, just in the last 4 years, from Nigeria, Chinese citizens, Pakistanis. And if you look and compare that with the kind of immigration that we saw from Poland, so, you know, culturally a big moment for the UK, Poland from 2001 to 2011, that was just under 600,000. Well, this is higher than that. And it's worth saying, yeah, these numbers are immigration so far, so we don't know how many people are actually going to stay, whereas the Polish numbers are net migration. But even so, it gives you a sense of this is a big cultural moment for the UK, aside from the economics. Final thing to say, a lot of people say, well, isn't this all about small boats? Well, no. The number of people coming in on small boats is really small in comparison to all the legal routes for migration, in particular, study and work.
One of the government's most prominent cabinet ministers pled guilty in court to an offence connected with misleading the police, Sky News revealed tonight. In a statement, Louise Hay, the Transport Secretary, told us she regretted following the advice of her solicitor in a police interview in the months before she was elected to Parliament as an MP. Our political correspondent Rob Powell broke the story and has this report tonight.
A cabinet minister outspoken against wrongdoing, but Louise Hay has now admitted to Sky News that she pleaded guilty to an offence connected to misleading the police just months before becoming an MP. Sources told Sky News the conviction in 2014 was linked to a false report of a stolen mobile phone, something they say was done for her own benefit. But Louise Hay says the incident was a genuine mistake from which she did not make any gain. She told Sky News she was mugged while on a night out and gave officers a list of items she believed had been taken, including a work mobile phone. In a statement, she added, "Sometime later, I discovered that the mobile in question had not been taken. In the interim, I had been issued with another work phone. The original work device being switched on triggered police attention, and I was asked to come in for questioning. My solicitor advised me not to comment during that interview, and I regret following that advice." She was convicted here at a now closed magistrates' court in South London. Miss Hay said she pleaded guilty on the advice of her solicitor and received the lowest possible outcome, a discharge. She was also working here at the time, in central London, as a public policy manager for the insurance giant Aviva. Sources say she lost this job because of the incident.
This is a damaging revelation for Louise Hay, and one that calls into question the judgment of this senior minister. Hailing from the left of Labour, the Transport Secretary also has connections with the former Downing Street Chief of Staff, Sue Gray. But with a new team now in charge at the top of Number 10, some had already been speculating about her future in government.
A volunteer police officer before entering politics, Louise Hay was later appointed Shadow Policing Minister. It's understood the incident was disclosed in full when she was appointed to the Shadow Cabinet. Conservatives say the Prime Minister has questions to answer.
I think, like the people at home, anybody who's just watched that and heard about a minister who apparently, was involved in misleading the police would be deeply concerned. I think there'll be a lot more questions to be answered on that. There'll be questions about who knew what and when. And yeah, deeply concerning. We'll wait and see what else comes from it.
Now many will be asking how much those at the top of the party and government knew about this conviction. A row this cabinet minister may hope she can ride out.
And Rob is at Westminster tonight. So, Rob, what are the team around Louise Hay saying in response to all this?
So sources close to Louise Hay are this evening saying it's categorically untrue that she misled police. Louise Hay did earlier say in that statement, though, that she reported her phone stolen to the police, and when she was called in for interview by officers, made no comment, and then, of course, later pleaded guilty to a charge in court. She says she regrets that now and it was all a genuine mistake. Our sources suggest otherwise. I think this story will eventually, potentially quite soon, turn to who knew what and when. We understand that this was all put out there by Louise Hay to the Labour leadership when she was appointed to the Shadow Cabinet. That suggests that Keir Starmer knows and that he appointed her to his cabinet anyway. I think the political context to this matters too, though, as well. Louise Hay made headlines last month after Sky News revealed that a £1 billion investment by a big firm, a Dubai-based firm, was temporarily shelved because of comments Louise Hay made about one of their companies. She talked about boycotting P&O ferries. Now, that investment did eventually go ahead, but Louise Hay was publicly rebuked by the Prime Minister over it. She was also one of the cabinet ministers that went over the Chancellor's head to appeal to Keir Starmer around the state of budgets and funding for departments in the budget. As I mentioned in the piece, there are links to the former Downing Street Chief of Staff, Sue Gray, there as well. So there is some existing tension. Number 10 aren't commenting tonight, but more broadly, it feels like this story still has some way to go, and this may not be the end of Louise Hay's troubles.
Rob Powell with the latest there from Westminster. Rob, thank you. Greg Wallace has been the face of the BBC's MasterChef for nearly 20 years. But tonight, he is the latest well-known name from the corporation to be facing allegations over his conduct. He stepped down from the show after 13 people made claims of inappropriate sexual comments or behaviour. Our arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer reports.
You OK, guys? You're not getting cold out there?
Mr. Wallace, do you regret the inappropriate comments?
Seemingly unrattled, Greg Wallace fielding questions from Sky News at his home before posting but not explaining on social media why friends were getting in touch.
I would like to thank all the people getting in touch, reaching out and showing their support.
You've got 15 minutes left.
For almost 20 years as a co-presenter of MasterChef, he's been a familiar face on BBC One.
I really like the sharp, raw pineapple with the lime on it. That is proper zinging.
Tasked with putting into words the contestants' culinary prowess. But it is the language he's alleged to have used off-camera that's now landed him in hot water. Taken off air for now as the production company which makes the show looks into a number of complaints thought to have been made by 13 individuals and spanning 17 years, including the former Newsnight presenter Kirsty Walk, who was disturbed by what she witnessed on Celebrity MasterChef.
There were two occasions in particular where he used sexualised language in front of a number of people. And it wasn't as if it was anyone engaged with this. It was completely one-way traffic. But I think people were uncomfortable.
The makers of MasterChef, Banerjee, made aware of the complaints by the BBC.
Those allegations against Wallace aren't just about inappropriate sexual language. They reportedly include him taking his top off in front of a junior employee. Taxpayer funded, the corporation has said that because he is employed by an external production company, it is now on them to investigate what's gone on. But it's said that it's clear that any behaviour by one of its stars which falls below the standards it expects won't be tolerated.
Banerjee UK saying whilst these complainants have not raised the allegations directly with our show producers, we feel that it is appropriate to conduct an immediate external review to fully and impartially investigate. While this review is underway, Greg Wallace will be stepping away from his role on MasterChef and is committed to fully cooperating throughout the process. How the BBC manages its talent has been in sharp focus after the behaviour of a handful of its stars has ended up being called into question in the last 12 months. While Greg Wallace hasn't yet commented on the claims directly, the BBC says the TV star's lawyers have told them it is entirely false that he engages in behaviour of a sexually harassing nature. The presenter stepping aside, but the channel still airing his shows for now. Katie Spencer, Sky News.
President Putin blamed Britain and America today for the latest aerial assault his military launched on Ukraine. He said the attacks on power infrastructure were in response to the two countries' missiles being used by Ukraine in attacks inside Russia. The Russian president says his armed forces launched 90 missiles and 100 drones overnight. Many hit Ukraine's energy infrastructure and temporarily cut power to at least 1 million households across 3 western regions, including Lviv, Volyn and Rivne region. Well, explosions were reported across the country from Kharkiv in the east to Lutsk in the far west and Odessa in the south. It was just the latest in a series of night attacks. Our chief correspondent Stuart Ramsey saw how Ukraine's armed forces are trying to counter them in Kyiv.
It's a continuous battle and they're struggling here. Kyiv and the rest of the country under an intense and unprecedented series of drone and missile attacks for days now. Air defence teams fired volleys of machine gun rounds into the skies over the capital. Powerful searchlights crisscrossing the night skies looking for the Russian drones. After the latest attack, President Zelensky accused Russia of using cluster bombs on civilian targets, describing it as a despicable escalation. Thousands took shelter in metro stations and shelters across the country. President Putin told his people this barrage was directly linked to the British and American decision to allow Ukraine to use long-range missiles inside Russia. In frozen fields, hundreds, even thousands of soldiers man their positions in sub-zero temperatures. They do their best to track the incoming drones, but Russian tactics have changed. As many as half are harmless decoys designed to waste time and bullets. The other half are deadly.
I don't know, I cannot say the specific purpose of that. Whether it's just a terror to make people feel unsafe and create unstable situation, or it's some kind of facilities they're trying to target, but they are operating it like regularly.
This thin defensive line is being tested by a Russian escalation that's trying to wear Ukraine out. Well, such as the increased targeting of Kyiv that the Ukraine military, extremely worried about this, have assigned units specifically to defend the capital. The problem is it's not just a few drones which they were used to defending. It now can run into hundreds. Swathes of the country are nightly plunged into darkness, including here in the capital. Rolling electricity blackouts caused by Russian drone and missile strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. The only lights are from generators. Through the darkness, Aliona walked me to her third-floor flat in Kyiv's left bank district. Her husband, Yevhen, has wired up their apartment to a car battery so they have limited power. For families in particular, the threat of attack from the skies never goes away. In many ways, it's psychological warfare, and it's taking its toll. It's meant to.
I saw a missile being shot down. Let me tell you, it was terrifying. It's a haunting experience. Even though I'm standing here now telling you about how we measure the scale of the danger, it's still deeply frightening to be in the open.
Despite the attacks and the threat, life in Kyiv has a veneer of normality. Shops and restaurants are open, and between the air raids, people go about their normal business. As this war grinds on and on. Stuart Ramsey, Sky News, Kyiv.
On the second day of the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, the two sides have traded accusations of violations of the truce. The Israeli military said it fired on what it described as suspects in southern Lebanon and also launched an airstrike after detecting activity by Hezbollah. Well, our correspondent Tom Cheshire is in Beirut tonight. Tom, these incidents taking place as thousands of people continue to try to return to their homes.
Yeah, when this ceasefire was announced, Hezbollah said it would be monitoring Israel's withdrawal with its finger on the trigger. Israel is already pulling the trigger, and it just underlines the fragility of this whole thing. This only came into effect yesterday morning, and it followed more than a year of war and months of really intense fighting, heavy bombardment here in Beirut and around all of Lebanon. Devastation in the south, especially with villages and districts being leveled. And there's a lot of joy, obviously, when it was announced, but also a lot of wariness because of what we've seen happening today. Both sides accusing each other of violating the ceasefire. The Lebanese armed forces also accusing Israel of violating the ceasefire. Israel saying it is hitting targets and suspects as it sees its withdrawal happen. Now, there is that fragility, but this is also the start of a process. Both sides have 60 days to withdraw. And one of the key things about this agreement is that both sides have promised not to launch offensive operations. And I think that is the definition that will be tested by actions like this, especially if it's seen that in the ceasefire, only one side has ceased firing and the other side is continuing with US support. But in all of that, as you say, 1.2 million people, more than that, have been displaced in Lebanon. It's a huge chunk of the population. They had been hoping to return home. Here in Beirut, cars making their way south. Lots of roads packed, but a lot of people staying, waiting to see, watching, again, with that wariness, because it's clear the south isn't safe yet. Israel has told people not to go to certain places. They've imposed a curfew. So although that ceasefire is there, a lot of people can't return home yet.
Sure, with the latest there from Beirut. Tom, thank you. Police have clashed with thousands of protesters outside the Georgian parliament tonight. The demonstrations took place after it was announced that the country has suspended talks on joining the EU for 4 years, accusing the bloc of blackmail. And this follows a contentious election that the European Parliament said was not fairly run. The historic vote on assisted dying in the House of Commons tomorrow has prompted passionate debate on both sides. MPs are being allowed a free vote on whether to approve legislation to allow terminally ill adults expected to die within 6 months to end their own lives. The question, after previous defeats for the idea in Parliament, is whether it will pass. Our political correspondent Liz Bates has been looking at how the numbers are shaping up.
This is a huge moment, but it's also hugely unpredictable, and the vote on the assisted dying bill could still go either way. We've been crunching the numbers, and this is where they currently stand. There are 181 MPs who have either publicly declared or confirmed to us at Sky News they will vote for the bill. 148 against. You can see there's a majority in favour, but it's close. Now look at this. The number of MPs who are either undecided or who haven't said how they will vote, 321. That's huge, almost half. Now, about 120 of these MPs have told us they are still undecided. The rest, we don't know. Some of them won't decide until the very last minute. So now, let's have a look at the parties. First of all, there are 21 MPs, here they are, who won't vote for various reasons. The rest, you can see a big chunk of this group, Labour MPs, 2/3, and lots of brand new MPs in there. This is really the group that is going to decide whether this landmark legislation passes second reading or not. So what could influence them? One factor could be cabinet intervention. So let's see how the cabinet is voting. These cabinet ministers are in favour. High-profile figures in here. Ed Miliband has said the current situation is cruel. Lisa Nandy has said it's unsustainable. You've got the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, in there. Now, these are the cabinet ministers that are against. This is a bit more controversial because in this group, you've got the Health Secretary, the Justice Secretary, Wes Streeting and Shabana Mahmood, both responsible for implementing this bill if it passes, both strongly against, and both have spoken out. Could that make the difference? And finally, still to declare, in this group, the big beast, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. Keir Starmer, we think, supports this bill, but he hasn't said how he is going to vote. So, as the crucial moment approaches, it looks more likely that it will pass second reading. But with so many unknowns, this could be the most unpredictable vote we see this Parliament.
And we will, of course, have full coverage of the assisted dying bill debate tomorrow morning from 9 o'clock here on Sky News. The former British soldier Daniel Khalife has already admitted he did escape from prison when he hid himself under a truck and left Wandsworth for a few days of freedom last year. Today, though, he was also convicted of spying for Iran. He had claimed he wanted to be a double agent, as Sky's Shaman Freeman-Powell now reports.
The moment the manhunt for Daniel Khalife came to an end. The former British soldier, today convicted of terror offences, gained nationwide attention after escaping Wandsworth prison, strapping himself under this food delivery truck using a pair of trousers. His escape for a short time was successful. CCTV captured his movements as he bought clothes from Marks and Spencer and even read about his escape in a newspaper. When finally arrested on this canal towpath, Khalife made no attempt to resist. He later said, "I was finally demonstrating what a foolish idea it was to have someone of my skill set in prison. What use was that to anyone?" He was being held on remand, accused of trying to use this so-called skill set to spy for Iran. But Khalife claimed it was all a bluff to prove himself a useful double agent.
I don't think Daniel Khalife should come and work for any UK agency, and I think Daniel Khalife committed some extremely serious offences.
Khalife joined the army aged 16 and by 17 had made contact with Iranian agents. Jurors were shown this selfie of Khalife taken in London in a park in 2019, where he left documents in exchange for £1,500, wrapped up in a dog poo bag. And a video he recorded showed he even travelled to Turkey to meet Iranian agents. Voice notes heard in court revealed something was delivered.
We went to Turkey and the plan kind of went sour. I delivered a package to them, which I don't think I should tell you, but just don't mention it to anyone.
The court was also shown images taken by Khalife in restricted army areas. Khalife claimed he wanted to be James Bond and only passed on fabricated or useless information.
The trial here at Woolwich Crown Court lasted more than 7 weeks, and after 7 days of deliberation, the jury were ready to give its verdict. It was at this point that Khalife took in a deep breath before learning that his actions had breached the Official Secrets and Terrorism Act.
He was found not guilty of one charge, a bomb hoax it was alleged that he had perpetrated whilst on remand. In a statement, the Crown Prosecution Service said, "For purposes of his own, Daniel Khalife used his employment to undermine national security. The sharing of the information could have exposed military personnel to serious harm or risk of life." Whilst his defence claimed he was naive, stupid but innocent, the jury ultimately agreed with the prosecution that Khalife played a game to fuel his ego at the risk to national security. Shaman Freeman-Powell, Sky News.
Manchester United's new head coach, Ruben Amorim, has won his first home game in charge of the club, but they were made to work hard for their 3-2 win over Bodo Glimt at Old Trafford. Manchester United had taken the lead in just the first minute through Alejandro Garnacho before the Norwegian side scored twice in the space of 4 minutes to take a 2-1 lead. But 2 goals from Rasmus Højlund restored Manchester United's lead, and they held on to win 3-2. That's a win and a draw for Amorim in his first 2 games. That was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's papers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by the Liverpool Echo's political editor, Liam Thorpe, and the writer and broadcaster, Esther Kreiku. Among the stories we will be discussing, this on the front of the Express about tomorrow's assisted dying bill debate. A message to MPs from Dame Esther Rantzen: please allow us dignity of choice in our lives. We'll be right back.